Colombia is a Spanish-speaking Latin American republic with a decent climate, a very low cost of living, beautiful women, and a booming economy. However, it doesn't have a great reputation with many people, and as such, they avoid it as a viable option to move to. Justified? Is moving to a Colombia a good idea? Let's find out. In this video, I'll tell you more about the following. First, we'll talk about Colombia in general, a little bit of background and other useful things to know. Secondly, what are the requirements for moving to Colombia? Is this actually possible for foreigners? Next up are some of its advantages and disadvantages. Then I'll lay out some numbers and facts which determine Colombia's score. And finally, I'll give you my conclusion. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it for free, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. The more interactivity, the better, and the more videos I can provide you with. Okay, let's get started. Colombia lies in South America and shares borders with Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru, Panama, Pacific Ocean, and the Caribbean Sea. It's a big country with a population of roughly 50 million and a diverse range of climate zones. You can expect tropical rainforests, deserts, mountain climates, savannas, and steppes. Colombia is pretty well known in the West for its problems with drug cartels and crime. In the last century, armed conflict and political violence were rampant. However, since the early 2000s, this country has been getting its shit together, and it has seen significant improvements in its economy, safety, stability, and development. Colombia has been growing rather consistently the past 20 years and is expected to keep doing well in the next few decades. It still sports somewhat elevated crime numbers, but these numbers are mostly inflated because of some specifically dangerous zones. Purely looking at the average murder rate, it's at about 25 murders per 100,000 inhabitants per year. This is pretty high compared to the overall US number of 5 per 100,000, which takes into account every small town. Then again, cities like Chicago are more dangerous than most of Colombia with 28 per 100,000. If you aren't being an idiot and waving your cash around, or going out alone at 3 a.m. in dangerous neighborhoods, or wandering off into the jungle, Colombia can be perfectly safe. It is a former colony of Spain, which means Spanish is the official language. This is great news because Spanish is easy to learn, and if you master it, you get access to almost all of the other Latin American countries. All in all, pretty much what you'd expect from this country, right? But can you actually live here? Let's take a look at the requirements for moving to Colombia. Colombia is amazingly accessible, and the requirements for living here are very, very easy to meet. Let's start by looking at the visa situation. Most Westerners can enter this country without the need for a visa, and you can stay there for up to 90 days. This can be extended. There are plenty of options for longer visas, such as visitor, migrant, retirement, business investment, or resident visa. In addition to that, permanent residency and citizenship are not only possible, they are also reasonably easy and fast to get. You do need to learn Spanish, but honestly, this would be highly recommended anyway if you plan to live here long term. The only real requirement for moving to Colombia is making sure you have several strong sources of international, location-independent income. You do not want to rely on a pension from a Western government, a remote job, or a job in Colombia. These are all horrible options. Be your own boss, be self-employed, and earn money from all over the world, wherever and whenever you want. Benefits moving to Colombia can get you. Colombia is a rising nation. It has seen significant growth in the last few decades, and while this has slowed down lately, it is still expected to keep growing rapidly in the future. Colombia boasts a varied climate. That means that there are hot and cold areas, dry and rainy regions, and so on. The score I gave Colombia for its climate is low, because it uses the average of the entire country. If you move to one specific location which suits your needs, the climate could be much better for you. Colombia is a very cheap country to live in, especially if you have a Western-sized income. Colombia has Spanish as its national language, and Spanish is rather easy to learn. This means that even though the average level of English proficiency here is subpar, you should be able to communicate with everyone, provided you put in some effort. Interested in a country which has beaches, mountains, jungles, savannas, and much more? Then Colombia is for you. The country sports a very relaxed visa situation. Most Westerners do not even need to apply for one beforehand. They can just get a visa on arrival for 90 days. This can be extended. Permanent residency and citizenship are also valid options. Colombian women are very attractive. Sure, tastes differ, but for most men, big tits and asses are a definite turn on, and you'll find that aplenty in this country. Some very important factors to be sure. However, keep the following downsides in mind. Colombia scores rather poorly on the English proficiency test, so the language barrier might be a deal breaker for you unless you learn Spanish. While Colombia has made great strides forward, corruption is still rampant at basically all levels of government. The same goes for petty crime, inside and outside the government. This nation is doing pretty well economically and developmentally, but it cannot be denied that you'll probably have to lower your standards a bit. Colombia is known for the violent altercations between the government and drug cartels, and the latter are largely responsible for the high murder rate. This is pretty elevated compared to the average of most Western countries, but keep in mind that certain Western cities do even worse, and many, if not most, cities in Colombia do much better. Now let's see how Colombia fares on my scoring system based on its climate, level of English proficiency, cost of living, taxes on international income, economic growth, safety, and the logistics of going and staying there. Colombia's climate depends heavily on the region. Some regions have way better temperatures and less rain, for example. Average hours of sunshine is a big surprise here, but apparently it's often cloudy. The high humidity is no surprise. While a low English proficiency may sound like a big problem, and for some people it certainly is, the fact that Colombia has Spanish as its official language means the language barrier will be paper thin if you learn Spanish. The cost of living in Colombia is very low. In South America, it is one of the best countries to move to if you want to get the most bang for your buck. In fact, living in Colombia is even cheaper than other countries which are known for an inexpensive lifestyle, such as Thailand and the Philippines. A single person's estimated monthly costs are below $400 without rent. If you add rent, this comes to roughly $600 to $650 per month. This is no money at all, and anyone with some form of location independent income can attain it. Foreign non-residents are taxed on their Colombian sourced income only. However, you are considered fiscally resident in Colombia if you remain in the country for 183 days within a year, and then you'll have to pay taxes on your worldwide income up to 39%. Over the past 10 years, Colombia has seen an average GDP growth of 4%, which is solid but not excellent. As expected, Colombia doesn't get a good score regarding safety, but it's honestly not that bad. The higher crime rates are mostly due to some dangerous zones. If you stay away from them and don't act like an idiot, you'll find that this country is perfectly safe, within reason. You can often enter Colombia visa-free for 90 days, which can be extended. A visitor visa, migrant visa, and resident visa are options too. The latter can be as an entrepreneur or through engaging in independent activities. You can also invest 100 times the minimum wage in a business in Colombia and get a business investment visa, or 350 times the minimum wage in real estate. A retirement visa is also possible. Getting permanent residency is possible. You need to have had the migrant visa for 5 years or invest 650 times the minimum monthly wage in Colombia. Citizenship is possible after 5 years, and dual citizenship is allowed. It's a relatively fast and painless process, but you do need to learn Spanish. If we take the average of all these numbers, we can see that Colombia gets a below average 6.7 out of 10. However, this number bears some clarification. If you can speak Spanish, you can eliminate the poor score in English proficiency. The climate score is the average of the country, so depending on where you move, it could be much better. Likewise with safety, which is really only a major issue if you go out in the jungle or the slums. And finally, how is living in Colombia as an expat? I'll be the first to admit that living in Colombia as an expat isn't for everyone. The country certainly isn't perfect, and still has to deal with a lot of problems before it can be one of the best options to escape the West. But it's getting there. The weather's decent in most locations you'd want to live, just not on average across the entire country. Cost of living is low, the women are attractive, the economy is booming, you can easily learn the local language, and if you aren't deterred by the elevated crime rate, mostly avoidable by not being an idiot, Colombia is a great country in Latin America for expats. However, I would advise against living here full time because then you technically have to pay taxes on your international income. Can the Colombian government really track your overseas income? Will they bother? Probably not, but it's best not to take chances. Turning it into one of your bases is certainly a great option, considering the ease of getting permanent residency. I'd also recommend it as a place to set up an asset such as real estate, due to the benefits this brings you and the growing market. Is moving to Colombia for you? Get your location independent income up and running, book a trip, and find out. There we go. Hope you learned something about this country. I'm curious to hear about your thoughts. Are you interested in moving to Colombia? Or have you been living here for a while and want to add something I forgot to mention? Let me know in the comments below. In any case, if you want more information about other countries you can move to, check out my website at escapingthewest.net. If you want to learn more about why the Western world is going down, how you can make sure you're protected, or if you just want to support the channel, consider checking out my new book available on Amazon. Link in the description. See you in the next video.